Hey everyone.
Howdy.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
Someone got a fresh haircut?
Yeah, finally was able to trim it down a little bit. I got it cut a little bit too short just because I feel like I'm not going to get to go again in reasonable safety. So it's an extended haircut.
Hey y'all.
Hey, how's it
Hey.
going, Erica?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just letting some
Good.
people in.
Hi, Annabelle.
Hello.
Hey there. Can give it a couple more minutes. How are things going remotely on campus? Are you guys still doing events and stuff, or has that been on hold still?
Yes.
So there's still programming happening,
There's
Yeah.
just in a virtual way, of course.
Gotcha.
And our students are completely occupied right now with trying to graduate and taking more than 18 units. So their main focus is on schoolwork and classes, not really on the extra stuff that we have going on right now for them,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Laura and I, you know Laura, I'm sure. I think you do. We just presented to a class on LinkedIn, and that seemed to really help the students. But we referred a lot of the stuff from LinkedIn back to the Career Launchpad because their project involves networking with individuals on LinkedIn, and so we referred back to like the cold emailing stuff that you touch on in the modules as well. So hopefully that presentation will bring in more attendance, or not attendance, but traction in the modules.
Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, I wish I could. I mean, since I'm in the area, I just wish I could come to NDNU and do another couple of presentations in person. That would have been fun. We'll have to.
Yeah.
I know for sure.
You can still come, Sahil. We'll do like a video recording of you.
I know.
I'm down if you really want to do that.
You know, different background, scenery. You could be on the NDNU campus.
I'm kind of bored of this background, so
Yeah, walking around campus, giving a tour, and like hanging out where students usually hang out.
Yay.
We wish you were here, but since you're not, this is what we're doing.
I know. I think students are coming in now, but I have a quick question, Sahil. I tried to register for the course to take it.
Mhm.
And I did this already, but I did it on your paid site. And so now my email's blocked. Is there any way to get that fixed? I mean, that's a super specific problem. You don't have to talk about this now.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Can you, I just texted everyone my email. Can you send me an email about that? And then I'll follow up and get you access.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. And in the meantime, let me just share the link for NDNU.
Yeah. That's what I need to. I have that link now, but I didn't the first time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey everyone. All right, I think we can get started. Eric, if you're good. Awesome. So today's topic is super fun and super useful, basically teaching you how to negotiate your salary. And so this is something that everyone's going to benefit from, not only now when you're looking for your first job, but also in your future jobs. The process is exactly the same. So these tips are super, super relevant for anyone who is going to be negotiating their offer terms. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And I do have a couple of notes just on share. Okay, Eric, can you see my screen here?
I can, but I noticed something with the recordings previously, that might be on your end, the panel of videos from everyone else was blocking the presentation. I don't know if you know.
Interesting. Yeah, what I can do is just turn off the panel and put it to the bottom. I'm not sure if that was one of the earlier recordings, because I did remember now I have to click spotlight for everyone, and then it just shows my video for everyone. You should only see my box here. Is that what you see? Or do you still see multiple people?
I see multiple people, but that's just on my end, so I don't know what what the recording will look like.
That's okay. I'll go ahead and minimize just so it doesn't interrupt the slide.
Thank you.
Thanks for the flag. All right, so today we're going to be talking about getting employers to compete for you. And this topic is taken directly from the Career Launchpad program. And so essentially, if you want more details about what we talk about today or go more at your own pace, the Career Launchpad program will walk you through those steps. I'm going to go through them quite quickly today because there's a lot in here. So if you're overwhelmed, just focus on kind of getting the big kind of key takeaways. Don't worry about the actual steps. Again, you'll have access to all this information in part of the program itself at the end. Okay, so a couple things here. We're going to go through an introduction, the presentation, and then wrap up with the conclusion. So our goal for you today is to learn how to negotiate your salary and offer terms. More specifically, how to be in this mindset of being long-term greedy about negotiating your job offer. We're going to talk about what that means. Secondarily, how do you compare multiple offers against each other? How do you conduct research to understand what your market value is? What are some best practices when conducting negotiations with employers? And finally, how to finalize an offer and still keep the door open at employers that you end up turning down. So these are all things that you're going to learn today. And then I'm going to quickly go through this. My brother and I, between us, have over 12 years of experience helping students launch their careers. And that's sort of why we put together the Career Launchpad program. I started off as a marching band student in high school, spent a lot of my time in marching band. As a result, didn't focus too much on school and got rejected by UCLA when I applied. But long story short, kind of got into the back door through the music program. And so spent the first couple of years freaking the hell out with being surrounded by dozens of students around me who on paper were smarter than me or more likely to succeed, and really dealt with this imposter syndrome. And kind of the years after that, I really learned how to navigate very competitive, very intellectually intimidating environments, and ultimately ended up working at a company that was listed on Glassdoor's top 25 most difficult companies to interview with. So that's all to say. And again, here's just a fun email from some of the other students that were part of my junior year internship at some really, really cool, well-known universities. So the reason why Rohan and I put this program together is because we figured out stuff the hard way so that you don't have to. My brother recruited for consulting and a position at LinkedIn where he's at today. And I work at Netflix today. So we both had really, really fun careers in our 20s. And we just want to share this information back to people who are just starting their careers, who are graduating soon, or even if you're a freshman listening to this, these are all good things to keep in mind as you think about your career at NDNU. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the presentation. So before we get into the interview prep, I'm sorry, I might have the wrong, let me see. Gotcha, okay, here. After this section, you're gonna transform in the following way. You're gonna go from not knowing how to negotiate your offer terms to entering offer negotiations with confidence and getting the terms that you want. So the big idea for this module is to be long-term greedy. And as a general principle, what that means is you should avoid making career decisions at this point in your life because of a, 4-figure difference in compensation, or maybe even low 5-figure difference in compensation, just because there are other things that you're going to want to prioritize in your life. And quite frankly, this amount of salary difference is going to be a rounding error to your entire net worth by the time you retire. So really think about it as, yes, compensation is important, but it's not the only thing when you're thinking about a job offer. And yeah, so instead of choosing the highest paying job offer, choose one that offers you an amazing boss, exciting day-to-day work, and the most upward career potential. Those are some other things that you should probably weight a little bit more other than just the compensation. We'll get into those other things in a moment. And the following guidance that we're going to talk about, obviously, negotiating only works best when you have leverage or multiple offers for the same type of career. But for those of you that just have one offer in hand or will soon have one offer in hand, you can still apply these principles and get some success. Just know that you won't have as much leverage as when you have like, hey, I have 2 other offers for similar employers, and therefore I'm totally fine going to either of them. Which one of you can give me the best terms? And that's where you really have a lot of leverage. So the framework that we're going to use to negotiate our salaries is fourfold. First, we're going to talk about the conceptually how to compare different job offers. Then we're going to get into the research that you can do to really get some data points. Then we're going to go into the actual negotiation stage of talking to an employer, and then wrap up with how do you finalize that job offer. So starting off with the compare phase. At this point, you should have received 1 or more offers and are in the deciding stage of, okay, I have 1 offer or I have multiple offers. How do I think about the trade-offs between the 2? I know many of you listening, if not everyone listening on this call right now, probably is not in this situation. But the fact is, it's good to learn this information before you need it, because when you need it, you're not going to have time to kind of learn all the tips and tricks to negotiate well. You're going to want to be focused on getting the actual information and doing the negotiation itself. So this is a really good chance today to learn some of the basic foundational principles. Another note, especially as college students, never ever cave into pressure from an employer to make a quick decision. You can always ask for more time. If you ever get an employer telling you that you need to make a decision by end of day today, that's probably not a good thing. So you should never feel pressured, especially with such a big life decision like your career. Obviously, you can't ask for like a month or 2-month extension on the deadline. That's unreasonable for them because they have other candidates. But I think generally speaking, you should be given a week, if not 2 weeks, to kind of look what else is out there and do some research on your own end. So again, never really cave in if you feel pressure from an employer to make a decision tonight or tomorrow after getting an offer. And if you still don't know the basic terms of your offer, like compensation, promotion potential, etc., you can still do the following exercise as preparation before you ask about the offer terms. So let's say you made it through the interview process. The recruiter's like, the team loved to meet you. Let me give you a call next week to chat about the actual offer terms. And now you have a couple of days to do some prep work beforehand so that when the recruiter does share the offer terms, you can kind of ask clarifying questions or share some of the market research that you have on that call. Okay, so step 1, what you want to do is start by making a table to compare each offer you have using the following criteria. So let me just orient you to this table, which looks really busy, but it's actually quite simple. And this is something that you can just copy paste in a Google Sheet or an Excel doc, or even print this out. So I've listed here in the rows a bunch of example criteria to consider. So for example, do I like the team I will be a part of? Do I find the day-to-day responsibilities exciting? What is the total compensation? Is the office located in a desirable place? What amount of vacation time will I get? These are some of the most common ones that I've helped my clients with, but feel free to add your own criteria. There might be other things that are important to you that you want to add here. Then you have a column for importance. So relative to each other, which one of these criteria is most important and which ones are least important? So you can kind of just do like a high, medium, low thing here. Then you have a column on negotiability. And what this means is some of these things you can't negotiate. Like, sorry, you can't move where the office is located. So that's going to be a no. You can't really negotiate that. Sure, you might be able to kind of negotiate remote work, but chances are you're probably not going to be able to take a role that's needing you to be in the office post-COVID and change that to a remote role. Very unlikely. So some of these things are not negotiable, whereas salary and compensation is very much negotiable. And then you're going to rate each offer that you have. Again, even if you have just one offer, you can put it through this framework and see where it nets out. So that's what we're going to do in the following steps. So like I said, step 2 then is to go through each criteria and determine how important it is to you. You can see some of these in this dummy example that I made are high, some of them are medium, and then some of them are low. So you get to pick how important these criteria are to you. Then the third step is to figure out which ones you can actually negotiate. So these are pretty much ones you can take literally word for word. Like, for example, you can't really negotiate who the team that you're going to be a part of is, which is why it's so important that you enter a team that you really enjoy working for. You can negotiate the day-to-day responsibilities by asking for certain projects. You can negotiate kind of the career trajectory and what kind of future jobs you can get into at the company. You can negotiate your salary. You can negotiate your vacation time. So some of these things you can actually negotiate, and you want to focus on those. And then lastly, like I mentioned before, you want to rate each offer across your criteria using a mix of qualitative statements and hard numbers. So what that means is some of these are going to be hard numbers, like vacation time, 14 days versus 21 days. Compensation, $45,000 versus $55,000. Like some of them are going to be hard numbers. Others are going to be like, do I like the team? And you can kind of reflect here. Well, this team is really cool. They're young. I relate to them. And then offer B might be, the team is super sharp and smart, but they're generally a lot older than I am. I'm not sure I'm going to be relating to them day to day. So trade-offs to consider. And so that's where you can kind of just enter your reflections, kind of like a diary journal for some of these criteria. And now you want to kind of see how the offers compare to each other. And let's say you're in the situation where you do have multiple offers. If there's a clear winner, like offer A across the board is like obviously the one you should go for, that's great. And that means that you can still probably negotiate some more just to see what else you can get. But if not, if the offers are pretty close, ask yourself if you could negotiate parts of the offer to be better. So for example, if offer A is bad across the board, but the compensation is really good, and offer B is good across the board, but the compensation isn't as great, then you want to ask yourself, can I potentially try to negotiate my compensation to be closer to offer A so that it becomes the best of both worlds? And that's how you should think about kind of comparing offers with each other. And so, yeah, even if you do have one offer being a clear winner, you should still negotiate for even better terms. And so to prepare us for the negotiation, what you want to do is identify what I call the double green criteria. And what this simply means is looking at your table of criteria, which ones are really important to you, so high in importance, and which ones can you really negotiate. For example, you probably don't want to waste time with a recruiter talking about something that's low and not really. Like, is the office located in a desirable place? Like, okay, the office is in, Austin, Texas, and you don't want to move there. So, and it's not really important to you. So it's like, okay, you can't negotiate it and it's not important to you. So you want to just, why even bring that up with a recruiter? But something like compensation might be really important to you and it is very much negotiable. So look for those double greens on your report card, and you want to flag those criteria as discussion points with the recruiter when you have that conversation. So you might say to the recruiter after you've got your offer, can we talk about the offer terms? I like to talk about 3 things specifically: the day-to-day responsibilities, what promotion trajectory looks like, and also the compensation. And that's a very, very professional, polished way to structure an offer negotiation call with the recruiter, because then the recruiter knows exactly what you want to talk about. So at this point, you should have a table of offer selection criteria and rank each criteria in terms of its importance and whether it's inherently negotiable. And then you want to assess your offers through the framework to see if there's a clear winner and a clear loser. And in either case, before your offer negotiation call, you want to identify at most 2 to 3 criteria that are what we call, remember, double greens, the stuff that are both highly important to you and negotiable. And that will be the foundation of your negotiation. You kind of want to stay away from negotiating 5 different things. That just means that you're kind of being greedy. It doesn't seem like it's a great fit and you're just trying to make something into something it's not. I'd really urge you to pick, just the 2 or 3 things that you're really, really passionate about fixing, and try to focus your negotiation on those aspects. Okay, so now at this point, let's go into the research phase. And so in this phase, we're going to conduct research to prepare for our negotiation calls with employers. So at this point, you've kind of run it through the comparison table, and now you want to do some more research to figure out, okay, is there other information online that can help me be more confident in the negotiation process? So for now, we're going to focus on two criteria that we would consider to be double greens. Just for the sake of example, we're going to focus on total compensation and then career trajectory. And even if the criteria you selected as double greens are different than these two, you can still use the same negotiation you can still use the same research techniques we discussed in this section, just kind of apply it for your own situation. So starting out with total compensation, your goal is to use the following resources to find out what we call your market value. So essentially, there are websites called Glassdoor, Indeed, PayScale, LinkedIn Jobs, and even your friends, to be honest, and asking them what is the compensation range for XYZ role. And what you ultimately want to build towards is saying, okay, it seems like the market value for an entry-level marketing coordinator at Oracle appears to be between X dollars and Y dollars. That's ideally what you're trying to get to. And so let's look at some examples. Step one would be to conduct online research to figure out the salary range for similar roles at other companies. So at Glassdoor here, I entered digital marketing coordinator in Austin, Texas, and you'll see that the average base pay is $44,083. And you can kind of see some ranges here. And be sure to make sure that you look at total compensation, not just base pay. So on some tools like LinkedIn Salary, they might say the base salary of 62K a year, but then the total comp is actually closer to 65K because of bonuses and things like that. So you definitely want to use the total compensation figure. And you can kind of use these websites to figure out salary ranges based on your job title, your location, and also your years of experience. And these are all typically free tools to use. So this is information that all of you should know just to kind of research and get those data points in. And step two here is ask if any of your friends work in a similar role or industry. Ask them what range you should expect. Now, your friends are actually going to be the best source of information because it's based on their firsthand experience and they're not really going to lie to you. Now, obviously, you might feel awkward asking your friends about their compensation, but as long as you're telling them that you're entering a negotiation phase, you have an exciting offer, your friend's probably going to be willing to help you out. And by the way, you're not asking for his or her specific compensation, which can be a bit personal. You're asking for the general range. Like if someone in your role is working in your industry, what is like their low and the high end range? And they might feel comfortable giving you a range, and that's valuable information. And just know that this is something you're going to have to do fairly regularly throughout your career to ensure that you're getting paid fairly. I'm really passionate about wage gaps and wage inequality. And I think at the entry level, specifically for college students, it's lack of information that leads to a lot of inequality at the workplace. And so I'm really, really kind of passionate about trying to get as much information as you can. So you might as well get comfortable with the process now. It is a bit awkward, but honestly, your friends are going to be willing to help you. Even alumni who are in the industry, you can ask them for advice. And these things matter, right? These are kind of increases in your compensation or offer terms that could make your life a little bit better. So why not kind of put in the effort? And so what you want to do next is then organize your compensation research into a table for future reference. So here's just an example. Again, you can print this slide out, you can copy it in Excel or Google Sheets. What I just listed, let's say for digital marketing coordinator, I researched using these couple of sources, and then I have two friends that are also marketing coordinators. And then I kind of understood what are the data points. So it's like the base salaries are here. Seems like bonuses tend to range in this amount. And then total compensation is just the base plus a bonus in each row. And then you can link out to that specific search if you have it. So essentially, this gives you all of these data points to tell you what does the online world say about this position. And now, if you're in Excel or Google Sheets, you can do some calculations to figure out what the range is. So I've listed some formulas here. Some of you might be familiar with how to use these formulas in Excel or Google Sheets. They're really simple. All you do is copy paste these formulas and then select the data that you want. So for example, average. I basically did equals average all and then selected all of these cells, and it came out with 55,000 is the average salary across my data points. 3,417 is the average across all my bonus data points. And then total compensation is 58,417 across the average of all my data points. And you can do the same thing with median. You can do the same thing with the minimum and the maximum. And so what you can do then is you can say, okay, seems like the lowest that I can find is 49,500. And the highest that I found was 66,500. So now if you have an offer from an employer and they're offering you 45,000, you're probably being lowballed. If you have an offer from an employer that's like 60,000, hey, that's kind of on the high end. Okay, so let me see if I can get maybe 5,000 more. But let's understand that even if the employer declines to offer to negotiate my salary, I'm still in the upper end of that band. So that's good information for you to know. And like I said, kind of arrive at your estimated range using kind of the min, the max, and the median or average. So you can say the low end, so in this example, our total compensation range is between 49,500 and 66,500 with a median or average of 59,000. And I mean, you just have so much more confidence going into a job negotiation discussion, knowing the market worth for your role. And when you show a recruiter, like when a recruiter says, well, what's your data point, or why do you feel you're worth X instead of what we offered you? You can then send them the spreadsheet and they're going to be really, really impressed at the work that you did, if it does come to that. But generally speaking, recruiters know this. And so they kind of enter negotiations starting with the low ball because they have all this information too. So this is just me telling you how to do that research for yourself. Generally speaking, by the way, your compensation range should be within a 33% boundary from the lowest to highest. So what that means is this shouldn't be like between $10,000 and $100,000. That's not a really helpful range. So make sure it's within about a third, 33% of each other. And if your ranges vary more than 50% from the lowest to highest estimate, chances are you need to kind of get more data points. So if it was like, my compensation range appears to be between 50,000 and 100,000, that's really not too helpful because that's like a huge range. So you probably need to get a little bit more data points to figure out what's closer to the truth. So now that we have your estimated compensation range, let's do some research on your potential career trajectory. So the goal of this part is to assess it across two dimensions: your promotion potential, so your ability to get promoted within the current role you have an offer for, and then also your stepping stone potential, so your ability to leverage your role to get a better role elsewhere. So it's like kind of counterintuitive, but like before you accept a job offer, you have to think, what am I going to do when I quit this job? And it's kind of thinking 2 steps ahead. And this allows you to really figure out, okay, if I'm going to stay at this employer for maybe 1 or 3 years, what do I want to do after? And what did this experience allow me to do down the road? So for both promotion potential and stepping stone potential, we can use LinkedIn to see how other people have built their careers. So the first step you want to do is go on LinkedIn and open the advanced search box. That's just clicking on the search box up at the top and clicking people, and then all filters here. And again, these are very tactical steps I'm giving you during this webinar. This is all covered in the Career Launchpad program. And then step 2 would be for the offers that you have, enter the company name in the current company's box. So you can enter kind of Oracle or Amazon or NDNU or whatever company you want to enter in that you have an offer for. And if the company you received is from a smaller or not well-known company, you can still do this exercise using larger, more well-known companies in the same industry or closer competitors. So even if you're working for a startup, you can still kind of look at what other people in the industry have done. And then what you want to do is scroll down to the advanced search tool and enter the job title of your offered position. So in this example, we're going to search for people who are data analysts who work at Oracle. And step 4 will be to check out profiles of people who show up in your search. So all of these people are currently data analysts or have been data analysts at Oracle. So 251 people. That's a lot that you can learn from. And then step 5 would be to click on someone's profile. So in this case, I clicked on Christina's profile. And I'm studying kind of what their progression looked like. So it seems like she started off as a business development consultant, was a blog writer, then became a data analyst, and is doing these things. So kind of really helpful information to know what the role is like. And now you can also replicate the exercise using the past companies box. So let's say you got an offer from a company and you want to know, okay, people do this job for about 2 or 3 years, but what do they do after this experience? And that's where the previous companies box comes into consideration. And now you can check out the people who used to be data analysts at Oracle and are now off and doing other things. And there's some pretty cool, like Amazon, someone at Sony Pictures, someone at a startup. So some pretty cool roles. So it seems like being a data analyst at Oracle is a good stepping stone. And like I said here, you can study their profiles and you'll see that maybe it wasn't data analyst, it was financial analyst intern. And then she went to then go to LinkedIn strategy and analytics program. So chances are the way to read this is, okay, if I have an offer from Oracle as a financial or data analyst, it seems to be a good stepping stone for other careers in tech. And that kind of a conclusion can be super helpful for you in framing how to choose what offer to go to. It's also important to study your future boss, as they're going to be a key driver of your development. So here are a few questions you can ask them once you have an offer in hand. What does success look like in my role? What qualities would a rock star performer have? What is the career trajectory of the role in 1, 2, and 5-year increments? What is your track record with helping other entry-level employees develop professionally? Have any of them been promoted or elevated to new roles? What is your management and leadership style? What do you value in your team? And lastly, where do you see yourself in a few years? Where do you see this team in a few years? So these are some questions, again, you can print out, kind of keep on hand. I would ask these questions after you have an offer, because that's when the manager is going to be most honest with you and where you have the leverage to ask these questions. I think when you're going through the interview process to compete for an offer, I would stay away from these questions because they do kind of grill your future manager on like their performance. So wait until you get the offer before you turn the tables on them. But this is a cool slide to have in the back of your pocket. So by the end of this part of the research phase, you should have a good sense of the following career trajectory paths. You should know kind of your promotion potential and how people tend to do in the job after a year or two. Do they get promoted, or do they kind of just stay in the same role? And then also stepping stone potential. Once people move on from this experience that I'm about to accept, can they get better roles somewhere else? And how is it a feeder for other opportunities that are out there? So now that you're aware of your market value, compensation range, and your career trajectory, you're ready to negotiate. And that's going to be step 3 of this framework. So there are a couple things that you need to have ready before your negotiation call. Number 1, a summarized bulleted version of your requests and your rationale. And number 2, which is a concept that I'll teach you, called your best alternative to a negotiation agreement, your BATNA. If it sounds like a bunch of big scary words, don't worry, I'll break it down. But just remember your BATNA. If you ask anyone, any business person or deal maker, what's like a principle of negotiation, they're going to probably mention BATNA at some point. Let's start off with this first one. So what you want to do is lay out your requests in bullet point form and compare them to the original offer. And you can use this kind of just on a blank piece of computer paper. On the left-hand side, here are the terms that the recruiter told me: 50K in comp, 2 weeks paid vacation, no mention of career development or promotions. And based on my research, here's where here are my terms. I want 60 to 65K in total comp. I want 3 weeks of paid vacation. And I would like to have a written agreement that my future boss will meet with me on a monthly basis to kind of check in on my career and help me think about promotions and upward mobility. These are your requests, right? And then what you want to do for each one of your requests is have a couple of sub bullets explaining your rationale. So if a recruiter asks you, well, where did you get that compensation figure from? You can say, well, I have a similar offer that's paying higher if you do have multiple offers. Otherwise, you can say, my market research based on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed shows similar, shows a higher salary range for similar type roles. And you can kind of link them to your spreadsheet. For 3 weeks paid vacation, you can say, market research shows that similar companies offer more vacation, and you can kind of point to their career benefits page. Or you can just simply say, listen, I value being able to take time off to recharge so that I can remain a high performer. That's a perfectly fine rationale, and just see if they're able to commit to that. And then lastly, for the written agreement, asking for this shows that your career potential research shows that people in similar roles tend to move on to bigger roles within 1 to 2 years. So if you noticed in your LinkedIn search that people who start off as a data analyst at Oracle, usually within 1 or 2 years, go into a data manager role, you want to ask about that during the offer phase and say, hey, is there a formalized process to be promoted, or how does that work? And how do I know whether I'm on the right track? And then secondarily, you want to build a certain set of skills that will require you to take on more responsibility. So you can kind of say to the recruiter, listen, I know I'm an NDNU grad, I'm just starting off in this role, but down the road, I would like to stay with the company for the longer term. What types of other opportunities will be made available to me, and what skills will I learn on the job? And those are perfectly fine questions to ask during the process. By the way, I think we have someone who just joined, welcome, who might not be on mute. So if we can please ask everyone to mute, that'd be great. Thank you. All right. And so what you want to do is have this bulleted list of requests and rationale in front of you during the call. That way your anxiety hopefully will go down a little bit. You'll be very confident in the research that you've done. And that way, if the recruiter asks, well, why do you feel this way? Or why do you think this term is what you're worth? You can kind of refer back to this bullet point checklist of like, well, okay, I did the research, I did my homework, and here's what I found. So this can be a helpful way to frame and prep you for those negotiations. Okay, now let's talk about your BATNA. So your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is simply defined as your best alternative to signing an offer with the employer. And this will determine how aggressive you can be with your negotiation. So let's consider the following scenarios. You only have one job offer, and your alternative is to turn it down and remain unemployed until you find something else. This is a low leverage situation, right? Because you're probably going to be like, let's say the recruiter is like, nope, I'm not agreeing to anything that you said, take the job or leave it. If you don't have any other options, you can't really do anything about it. You might be like, okay, fine, like I'll take it, even though it's not exactly what I wanted, but it's better than nothing. The other scenario is you have multiple job offers that are paying more and provide more career potential than the offer you're about to negotiate. And you're comfortable taking one of those other offers if this employer doesn't meet your request. In that case, you can enter the negotiation totally confident, again, not being a jerk or arrogant, but you can say, you know what, these are my offer terms. Please let me know if we can kind of meet in the middle or get closer to them. And if the recruiter is like, no, we're not doing that, we don't negotiate, then you can be like, okay, thanks, I'm gonna kindly turn down the offer because I have other things available. And that's a very high leverage situation. So remember, when you think BATNA or when you hear that phrase, just think about what is my alternative if I say no to the negotiation? And that really determines how much leverage you have. And that's why it's so powerful when you can get multiple job offers, because you can kind of shop them against each other and get the terms that you want. So the amount of leverage you have in the negotiation process will tell you how hard to push the employer for your requests before you walk away from the offer entirely. And then now we're ready to finalize, so kind of selecting the offer. So now let's say that you've negotiated your offers, you had your call with the recruiters, and you can go back to your comparison table and update the terms for each offer to make a final decision. So let's say you chatted with the recruiter for offer A and for offer B, and offer B actually increased their comp by like 20%. So you want to go back to your tracker and change that number and be like, oh wow, like offer B now is high across the board, is like really, really good across the board, and the comp is better. Okay, I'm probably going to go with offer B. So just kind of refresh your original table with any new information that the recruiter provides. And when selecting an offer, remember these two guiding principles. Again, number one, avoid making major career decisions just because of a small salary difference. Again, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. And number two, instead of just choosing the highest paying offer, choose one that offers you an amazing experience in terms of your future manager, the company's mission, the day-to-day responsibilities, and the most upward career potential. In other words, be long-term greedy, not short-term greedy. And for the offers that you do turn down, keep in mind the following. If there was a disagreement related to the offer terms, always reaffirm your gratitude for them extending an offer and taking the time to consider you for the role. So in other words, you never want to come across as a student who feels entitled to terms like, oh, well, LinkedIn says I'm worth 60K and you're giving me 40K. How could you dare do that? Watch your tone on that. Definitely, if the recruiter simply says, sorry, Sahil, all we can offer is 40K, that's all I'm allowed to do, just be respectful and say, okay, I understand. Thank you for that information. I do have other offers that are giving me the salary that I want. So at this time, I'd like to kindly decline the offer, but super grateful for considering me for the role, and best of luck, and just be professional. And the reason why is because you always want to leave the door open for future roles. You can say something simple like, I'd love to stay in touch in case other roles come up in the future that are a better fit. Would that be okay? And to give you a personal anecdote, over the past 6 months, I've interviewed at TikTok, Spotify, HBO, Snapchat, and a couple of other startups, got offers from a couple of them. A couple of them didn't work out, but in either case, because I'm still at Netflix, I said, I'd love to stay in touch in case other roles open up. And by doing that, if you made it this far into the interview process, you've already proven yourself as a great candidate. So chances are, if the company has another role or you see another role and you apply, the company will fast track you through the recruiting process because they already know who you are. So it's a really cool way to kind of keep the, what's the right phrase? Keep the conversation warm in case other roles come up in the future. So definitely don't shut the door behind you if you decide to turn down an offer. And that's kind of my takeaway here is never, ever, ever burn bridges with employers. They keep a historical record of every applicant in their electronic database for future reference. So if a recruiter is very off-put by you in a negotiation, he or she can definitely enter notes in their recruiting database. And if you apply for a job in a couple of years, that name is probably going to pop up and those notes will come up that, hey, this person was a jerk and I don't think they'd be a really good culture fit. So again, just keep in mind, you always want to be a little bit humble and grateful for an offer that an employer gives you, but firm and very confident in the offer terms that you want based on your research. All right, so that's basically the 4-step framework. Again, apologies, everyone. We went sort of fast on this one just because I know there was a lot to go through there, but the Career Launchpad program has a lot more detail and walks you kind of through some of my anecdotes going through some of these steps. And so here's an action item checklist to really put this all into place. Number 1, you can make a comparison table of all your offers. Number 2, you can do a reflection exercise to figure out what criteria are important to you and negotiable. And then step 3 would be to focus on, remember, just 2 to 3 criteria that we consider, remember, the double greens, the stuff that's really important and actually negotiable in the process. Step 4 is to then figure out your BATNA, remember your alternative, and determine how much leverage you have in the negotiation and how aggressive to be. If this is the only offer you have, then sure, try to ask for better terms. But if the recruiter doesn't really budge too much, then you kind of have to accept the offer, and that's totally fine. Step 5 would be to actually conduct the negotiation calls with each one of your employers. Step 6 would be to update that original table with any changes from the original offer terms based on whatever the call outcome was. And then step 7 would be to select an offer and politely decline the others, but still keep the door open regardless. So these are all things that you can do. Even if you don't have an offer, it's never too late to start thinking about kind of how will you decide what offer or what job you actually want to go work for. What do you value? And so this is a really helpful exercise to do, even if you're early on in the process. All right, so that kind of wraps up today's presentation. Just kind of a conclusion. Eric and Erica, I shortened this section down just because I thought we would run over on time. But essentially, for those of you who are not yet familiar with the Career Launchpad, this was just a sample of over 20 modules that are available in the Career Launchpad program. This covers everything from how to discover your dream job, how to network, use LinkedIn, how to write a resume and cover letter, how to interview incredibly well, and even, yes, how to negotiate your job offer and how to navigate everything through COVID. It really is exhaustive from A to Z of anything you need to know about recruiting. And typically we charge $397 per student for this program, but NDNU has graciously offered to make this program available to every student for free. 100% off, completely free. And so if you enjoyed the quality of the content in today's webinar, whether you're listening live or after the fact, definitely join the Career Launchpad program to get the full over 8 hours of content and our support throughout the entire process. So you can click the link in the chat right now to get started. And we also have a Facebook group that you'll get prompted to join. And in that Facebook group, you can ask any career related questions you have and even schedule office hours with Rohan and I to get some personal one-on-one help if that's something that you need. So with that, I'll go ahead and exit the screen and make sure that the link is posted in the chat for all of you to join. But thanks again for joining today. Hope this is helpful. And again, these are some valuable tips that'll help you not only for your first job, but also for your 5th and 6th job down the road. These are sort of the basic tenets of salary negotiation. All right.
Thank you, Sahil. Does anybody have any questions for him?
Has anyone actually been through a negotiation yet? Has anyone been too scared to think about, can I even negotiate? No one? That's okay. Eric, you so.
Yeah, I would say friends, like I've heard of people being really uncomfortable with it overall and just the idea of it because it hasn't been something that they've been taught or it's not a norm. So yeah, I've heard of, folks where it can be kind of uncomfortable or, something that they're not used to.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think people teach college students how to do this stuff. And, negotiation is also about information and relying on other people being misinformed or not having information. And I think that's not ideal, obviously. So that's why I think to everyone listening to this call live and recorded, there's just so much information available online in forums, friends and family you can ask around to get some data points and know your true worth and affirm that in the recruiting process. Because recruiters, I can tell you, have all the information in the world. They hire very fancy consulting firms to do market research, to do interviews. And it's kind of like the cards are stacked against you. And again, we're not just focused on compensation here. We're focused on other things like the types of projects you get to work on, your promotion potential. And I think it's really important to ask for these things before you accept the offer, because that's when you have the most amount of leverage. The firm really wants you to join. Once you're an employee, you're kind of just one of many. And so it's up to you and your future manager to determine how much you're going to get those opportunities. So that's why I think before you accept the offer, but when you get the offer, that's when you have the most power to really get the terms that you want. Eric, were you going to say something? You're just saying so.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, okay. Laura, yeah.
I've done a little bit of negotiating, not too much. Public sector jobs often have pay ranges.
Yeah.
Or pet set pay ranges. But pay is a topic of interest. When you said that you're interested in equity and things like that, it also is an interest for me too, especially for women and minorities and things like that who are statistically underpaid or less than whatever counterparts and stuff. So
yeah,
I feel, and then I know for sure that women, in addition to the not being underpaid compared to male counterparts or whatever, are also less likely to negotiate, and also which reflects also being taught less how to negotiate. And so it's really quite nice to get a little bit of training and practice before the need occurs.
Yeah, for sure. And by far and away, to everyone on the call, once you start your careers, the biggest negotiation leverage you can have is just to be a really kick butt performer in the workplace and really doing good work. And when you're that kind of irreplaceable and you know, people enjoy having you around, then it becomes so much easier to negotiate and you have so much more self-confidence. So today we talked a lot about tips and tricks, and I understand that for those of you who are listening, this might be to prep you for that first job. But once you're in that role and you're thinking about, okay, how can I get promoted? How can I, you know, ask for that raise? A lot of that confidence will come from doing great work and having great impact. And so also look at that as a source to kind of help you get through that anxiety of even thinking about making that career move.
I would just also like to make a comment that I really appreciated the Excel spreadsheet, the breakdown, because a lot of times when folks think about compensation and they think about, you know, going into or looking at an offer, they tend to really focus on base salary. And I think that you really touched upon, you know, other important factors, which are, you know, looking at how much vacation you're being offered, what bonuses or other things that kind of makes it a full package, you know, not just the base salary. Yes, that's important, but also looking at other areas that are also important when negotiating your compensation.
Yeah, it gets pretty tricky out there for those of you that have any interest in working for startups or big public tech companies that offer like stock options and RSUs. And unfortunately, couldn't cover all that today. But that's why it's important, again, to your point, Eric, looking at total comp, not just the base salary that you're getting. All right, everyone. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'll go ahead and give you the time back. And this recording will be made available to anyone who's interested in rewinding back. Of course, highly encourage everyone to join the Career Launchpad program so you can watch the content on your own pace and kind of follow through with everything. Eric, is there a place that they can go to watch this?
Yes, so they're on YouTube,
Okay.
but we're dealing with some issues with the marketing page right now, so they're not on there yet, but they're uploaded. So if anyone's interested in watching any of the previous webinars, go ahead and send me an email. I'll put it in the chat right now, and then I'll send you the link for those.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks everyone. And we have one of these every month. And so stick around because we always have interesting topics. So yeah, if you found this to be valuable, definitely tell your friends, and I hope to see you on the next one in about 4 weeks. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Shahir.
Bye.